You going for a run?
Yeah.
All right, I'll see you later. Yeah. I'm going to put someone in a video if they don't want to be in a video. But yeah, ideology. Oh, man. So, when I was about 2004, I was at university in Spain. And I was like, something's not right about this culture. Like, you had this situation where the most unintelligent, like intellectually incurious, bloody narcissists were saying things that were so kind of dark and wrong, like at every level. And on the face of that, you could say fair enough. And then you would go to like authority figures or institutions, and all that darkness, all that kind of narcissistic, dark, spiritually dark nonsense was in all the institutions as well. So there was no one to turn to. So it was, so that was the first time I started to notice. So 2004 was when I sort of noticed something was wrong, because you had that relationship between, I would call the darkest sort of dark triad personality profiles in society, and they had this kind of intrinsic relationship with all the institutions and the government. And back then I wasn't really aware of all that kind of the things I know now, obviously. And we're put into these boxes of done on purpose, obviously. We're put into this, like, you got to be, back then at least, left-wing people and right-wing people, and it's such a trap, man. There is no way that kind of thousands of years of philosophy, metaphysics, personality profiles, all the different variables of type of people that we have, all the different life experiences are going to be reduced down to left-wing people and right-wing people. So I don't know what it's like in the UK now. I haven't lived there for, I think it's 26 years, something like that. But I've watched the whole thing from the outside, and bloody hell. I knew something was wrong. I knew it. 2004, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what it was. And I just thought, because we were forced into this left-wing, right-wing thing, they identified these kind of like narcissistic demons at university. They identified as left-wing, and me, not knowing anything about anything, thought, well, I must be right-wing then, if you're left-wing, because I definitely am not like you, or don't want to be like you. And so then I started, oh man. So then you get put into this stupid trap. I started watching a lot of, not a lot of, but over the course of the years, a lot of right-wing stuff, but mainstream right-wing nonsense. It's just awful in hindsight, but that's because that's the trap they get you in. They put you in this trap, and then you end up, this is what the trap looks like at its lowest level. When you're absolutely at the lowest intellectual level, you're in this trap, and it's you end up, I ended up, in my case for example, consuming very low end right-wing stuff. Not going to mention any names because I don't want to offend anyone, because I know people are sensitive. I ended up consuming very low end right-wing stuff because of this kind of Hegelian dialectic. If you don't know what Hegelian dialectic is, look it up, because it's really important, because it's a fundamental part of the culture. And it's a fundamental part of, basically it's a fundamental part of how good and evil works all over the world, has done for millennia. It's basically the idea of a darkness, an obvious darkness. So something that we see that is an obvious evil, and that's juxtaposed with what Christianity would call a false light, and modern philosophy would be called a Hegelian dialectic. So you think you're doing right because the evil you're fighting against is an obvious evil, but it ends up being a trap. And it's very typical tool of the devil, tool of the intel agencies. I can't believe I got to put my glasses on, man. I don't want to put my glasses on. Anyway, so I ended up in this bloody trap, this Hegelian trap, watching right-wing content because I've been pushed to the right by these narcissistic demons at university. And then that stupefied me and made me completely incapable of thinking about anything, because that's the idea. And yes, eventually I think I became a Christian, a much more engaged Christian, and also conspiracies. And there is some relationship that exists between truth, mental health. I wrote about this today on Substack. There is a very beautiful relationship that exists between truth, happiness, mental health. And my happiness, when I started learning a little bit about more non-mainstream news, my happiness went up so much. It makes so much more sense. The idea that we're run by left-wing people and right-wing people, and the most powerful empire, the most powerful oligarchs in the world give away their power to a bunch of us, basically. Give away their power once every 4 years. It's not believable on its face. It is not believable on its face. But yet, when you're born into a load of lies, and that's the only thing you know, you can basically get people to believe anything. It sounds condescending, but it's not. It's just human nature. So that was my situation. And eventually start waking up. And anyway, as for the situation in UK, bloody hell. Like, sometimes it's almost like I think what's happening in the UK is almost a bit like as an analogy, it's a bit like child abuse, in the sense that it doesn't feel as bad when it's happening to you, even though you do know it is bad. And I know you know it's bad, but I don't think you know how bad it is. What I'm saying is I think it's way worse than you think it is. Way worse. And when you're watching it from the outside, it's I think it's more horrific watching it from the outside, or knowing about it from the outside, than it is the inside. Because humans, they adapt, don't they? And they get used to it. And I think what happens, especially a lot on the conservative side, they where they know they don't like it and where they complain about it, they think that means they have a good grasp of what's going on. People conceptualize things as binary. There's this side that supports the government, that supports all the statist political policies, and then there's the people that oppose them. And if we oppose them, then we must be awake. But things aren't binary. I mean, there's levels to knowledge, and I really believe that the UK is in a much worse state than people think. And just opposing it doesn't mean you know how bad it is. Sorry to be negative, but that's the way it is. I don't know what you think you're going to do. So everyone complains, but they don't have any plans, and that's fair enough. Because I've thought of plans, and they're virtually, it's virtually impossible to think of a plan. Because you're dealing, as I said before, with the most powerful intelligence services in the world. So certainly the most powerful propaganda machine in the world. Like, forget trying to convince your neighbour. You heard people say this thing like, what do they say? people need to wake up. And that's not going to happen. Even if it did happen, like even hypothetically, this is a good example of how it's not even remotely a democracy, and probably there's never been a democracy, is that these people that they say, oh man, people need to wake up. Okay, let's say they wake up, hypothetically, very hypothetically, because that would not happen. But let's say they wake up. What do you think is going to happen then? You think the most powerful people, the most powerful oligarchs that have had power for hundreds, maybe thousands of years, from the Venetians, the Romans, the Venetians, and then they went to Britain. They've had power for all that time. They're experts in how to control populations, right? And then you're going to watch a Rumble channel. Everyone's going to watch a Rumble channel, wake up, realise they've been lied to, and then they're just going to give their power away. That's not what's going to happen, even in that hypothetical circumstance. So really, the idea of, I think the key to trying to sort yourselves out in the UK is, first of all, individuals. You've got to do it on an individual level. Like, forget your neighbour. Don't worry about it if your neighbour's watching a channel you don't like or whatever. So you can only save yourself, really, whether that be when you're in times of tyranny or whether it be spiritually. You can really only save yourself. And there's definitely not going to be, there's no political answer. If they've got total and absolute power, but they're pretending that it's a democracy, and at least half the country, if not more, believe that it's a democracy, you're in a trap that you can't get out of, essentially. But as long as you're aware of it, at least you can act accordingly. But I don't know what you're going to do. I mean, I think it depends on a lot of things. It depends on age, how old you are. Look, I don't want to make things too complicated, but a lot of these things are happening all over the world. I know you kind of perhaps only see it in the UK and the US because they're the channels you consume, but I've lived in 7 countries and I speak three and a bit languages, and I'm telling you, and I know a lot of people from lots of countries, and I'm telling you, unfortunately, you can't just get on a plane and go to some place where the CIA aren't operating. And even if you did, you'd still have other intelligence services and other people. They've got some agenda. They've got, we know what they're doing. Like a globalist agenda that they've got. So it's not as if you can just magically escape. I recommend just consuming the highest intellectual content that you can. Don't consume content according to political bias, because the chances that you're right in the first place are slim. Don't confuse the following 2 concepts. Don't confuse the idea that because you know your neighbour's wrong, that therefore you must be right, because that's a trap, as I mentioned before. Okay? So if your neighbour is some annoying narcissist that reads whatever, The Guardian or whatever, don't think that because you're consuming something that's in opposition to The Guardian, that you're therefore right. It's very easy to be correct about someone being wrong, but it's very difficult to be correct about someone being right, because there's so many possible answers. So the chances that you're wrong are really high. Chances that you're right are very low. Therefore, don't consume content according to your political biases, because your political biases probably aren't right, and they're probably just keeping you down. So instead of having your political biases as a variable to what you consume, I recommend to consume the highest quality intellectual content you can, and don't worry about where it leans or whether you agree with it. Just raise the bar a little bit, because as far as I can tell, the smartest people that I find they're pretty much on the same wavelength area. But anyway, yeah, so I would say if you're younger, I would highly recommend leaving, because although I said these kinds of things are happening all over the world, I mean, Brazil's bad. I used to live in Brazil. When I first left the UK in 1998, I moved to Brazil, and it was fine. I mean, it's dangerous, but it was fine. The politics in Brazil now are horrific. I'll make a video dedicated to Brazil at some point, because that's really sad, man. I spoke to my friend on the phone the other day from Brazil, and they're like, it's just so much stuff. You don't know what you can say and what you can't say. That rings any bells? Yeah. So it's changing everywhere. But I would definitely recommend thinking about leaving the UK if you're young. You don't have to, but at least have a plan B. People have a plan B. You don't have to go all in, all or nothing. Have a plan B and plan out your plan B, and then weigh it up against what it's going to be like to stay. One thing I'd say to a lot of people is that the overwhelming majority of people are conceptualizing the UK as a single entity. It's really a Western hegemony. So, I mean, for a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people want to go to Spain. Okay, I went to a school in Spain before university. I went to university in Spain, and I lived in Spain for a long time. And I spent the summer with some Spanish guys as well, who were young, in their early 20s. And I'm telling you, you are not escaping tyranny in Spain. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but you're not. So I would try and think somewhere outside of, well, I was going to say Western hegemony. Well, Bulgaria is Western hegemony. But the difference between, let's say, Bulgaria and Spain are both within the hegemony of the West, right? So why am I saying don't go to Spain, but I'm in Bulgaria, if it's the same power sphere of influence? Well, because, and this is important, just because Bulgaria is in the EU, Bulgaria is in NATO, Bulgaria is under the Western influence, but the society, that's the political class, the society is not like the Western society. Okay, that's why. So a good example would be the medical intervention. When we had the medical intervention, the mainstream media in Bulgaria is exactly the same as mainstream media in the West. Okay, right, so it's exactly the same as the mainstream media in the West, yet only 20% of Bulgarians took it. Why is that, if the media is exactly the same? Because they've culturally, they don't believe the media. They know how power works. So for example, they had their, Westerners call it communism, it was really socialism, but it doesn't matter. They had their, it was still tyranny. They had their tyranny, okay? And what Westerners need to know, I keep saying Westerners, more my friends say, it's not only Westerners. It's just a habit, it's a bad habit. What people need to realize is that when you live through tyranny, the tyranny has an ideological label. So for example, communism, fascism, all this kind of stuff, they're all ideological labels. But really, so you hear people say, especially a lot of intellectuals like Jordan Peterson and stuff like this, they say things like, well, in Eastern Europe, they would never accept anything on the left because they lived through left-wing tyranny. That's not really how it works. They don't, when you're under the boot of a tyrant, you don't really think about ideology, you think about power concepts and concepts of power. And really, can this work that way? Yeah, I think it can work that way. You think about concepts of power more than you do anything else. And you certainly don't care if they're, you don't care, why would you care if the secret police are left-wing or right-wing? It's such a stupid concept. So what they learn when they live through what they live through here in the East is not to trust authority. Not don't trust left-wing people or don't trust right-wing people. That's really pathetic intellectually. I'm sorry, but it is. They learn how power works, and they know not to trust power because it's corrupt. They learn about how perverse incentives work. They learn about how corruption works. They learn about all the different personality types. You know, if your neighbor is, you know, a mix of the dark triad personalities, he doesn't care what the ideology of the government is. He wants to know how he can make the most of perverse incentives. And if he says he's going to have to pretend to be a socialist or this or that, that's what he's going to pretend to be. This idea that you see it so much in media and social media, that people take what others say on face value. So someone has a narcissistic breakdown, screaming socialism's the best. Everyone understands that to mean it was a socialist phenomenon. It's clearly a mental health problem. Just because someone's screaming about politics doesn't mean that politics is the issue. 9 times out of 10, it's either a worst case scenario, it's a mental health problem, and most of the time, even best case scenario, it's still a personality trait issue. So anyway, I've quite enjoyed making this video. This is the first video. Sound's probably going to be crap. I don't know what I'm going to do about that, because I tried going out with a microphone today, and the crappy little microphone from China, even though I charged it all night, didn't work. Okay, so I'm sorry for the squinting. There's a load of sun. See, the squinting or glasses, I don't think the glasses are going to be very good. I've got some. Look, this is really beautiful. This is the park where I live in Bulgaria. You can't really come. But over there you got mountains. This is such a beautiful park. It's right by where I live. And look how quiet it is. It's the most beautiful morning imaginable. Unbelievable. It's the most beautiful, and the morning. So the weather in Bulgaria this time of year is like this almost every day. Almost every day. And it's ski season, so there's loads of skiers. Not where I live though, thankfully, but up the coast. I'm so used to Spain. Not up the coast, up towards the mountains. And yeah, so I'm gonna make some more videos, but this is the first one. But like I say, I quite enjoyed making this. It's a lot of fun, and I mean, I'd love to have some contact with people from the UK, because I do meet like summer before last, I met this couple from the UK. It's just interesting to talk to them. Like, if you get so many, like, I've got this friend, and he's from London. And he's one of those people, I don't know if you meet them, they just go, there's nothing wrong. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? It's the best country in the world. He's from London, of all places. So, I think what we need to do is not confuse. Most people don't know anything about politics, right? What most people are is a manifestation of their personality profile, where they get blasted with politics since they're kids. They think that that's their political identity, but it's really just their personality, you know? And I think that's just clearly, that's a personality, isn't it? Someone who just deals with it by saying everything's great. I mean, I don't know what kind of frame of reference he thinks he has. Anyway, no, I was going to say that I would love to have some contact with some people from the UK and to discuss things, because I think you're too close to it. I think you're too close to it. You've been too close to it for too long, and it's hard for anyone to work anything out. I've been there. I've been in situations like that all through my life. You get too close to something, you can't see the woods for the trees, and you know, it's like that. It's a change is as good as a rest. You need a break. British people need and deserve a break. No one, by the way, no one deserves to go through what you lot are going through. That is some bullshit, man. That really is. Like, the forces of evil that would do that to a country Well, I'm a Christian, and I think that they are dark forces, and I think that the people that run Britain aren't people that are, they're certainly not politicians. They're banks, banksters, oligarchs, and we think that, well, that there's very much a battle of good versus evil, and I don't think that you can put what's happened to the UK down to political ideology. Like, your left-wing neighbour might be dumb, but he doesn't have any power to do all that. And the people that have power to do that to a country, and they're doing it everywhere. They're doing it all over the West, the Western Europe. Someone was saying the other day about the difference between the collapse of the Soviet Union and the collapse of the EU. The most outstanding difference for me, the EU collapses, which it probably will, is social cohesion. The Russians were able to scrape by. The Russians were able to scrape by because they had that social cohesion, and it wasn't easy because they were in a proper mess economically. But how on earth is Western Europe going to scrape by, if they do at all? It certainly ain't going to be based on social cohesion. Like, I don't know what they're going to do, but you need a plan B. You've got to have a plan B if you're young, and get out to, I don't know, get out to the countryside. The cities seem to be way worse, but I don't understand how you justify living in a city. Like, it's more expensive and it's crap. You could say that about the whole of Western Europe. I mean, Spain, like I said, I lived in Spain for ages when I was younger, and haven't been back for a while, but I know it's awful. All my friends tell me it's awful. I was with two young lads over the summer. We went to Turkey, and they said it's horrific. They're in their early 20s, and they were saying it's really hard because this nonsense, this social nonsense, is a bit later coming to Spain. So the UK people are a bit more used to it, and it's evolved a little bit more in the UK. So it's slightly newer in Spain, but these two young lads were telling me it's very difficult for them to date in Spain because you got this social kind of feminist phenomenon where, let's say, half the girls have been taught feminism, okay, but then, and I said, well, what about the other half? And they said, well, the problem is the other half are intimidated by the society, by the social phenomena that exist there. And so the ones that aren't feminists, we're talking about young girls, the ones that aren't feminist, they have to pretend that they are. I mean, what kind of a country is that? What kind of a country is that? I saw it, there's a YouTube short that you can look up about, it's like if you ask ChatGPT what they would, if they were the devil, what would they do to destroy women? And I thought it was just going to give a crass answer like, oh, I'd just give them feminism. But instead of doing that, it goes through in detail all the mechanics of feminism. It's kind of a dark video. I've got there's plenty of girls that I've met that I know that I could send that video to, but that wouldn't be very nice of me, so I won't. Right, gonna call it a day. We're back to where we started. I hope you liked the video. I'm gonna make some more videos. If this one's okay, I'm gonna see what the sound's like. Probably a load of crap, but I'll have to find out how to improve it. Okay, ciao guys, thanks.